Hello and welcome to another review of Drones Visual. Today we'll be taking a look at Eachine's largest drone, the Eachine Pioneer E350 that was launched a few months ago. Eachine has mainly been focusing on manufacturing smaller toy-grade quads and FPV racers, but now they have decided to take on the big birds like the Eachine CX20, the CX22, the XK380 and the Flying 3D X8. The Eachine Pioneer E350 will come in two versions. One that offers a 2-axis gimbal and a telemetry unit, and the other one, which is the one I have over here, that comes with a gimbal, without the gimbal or the telemetry unit. Today, what I plan to do is to cover all the components that come included with the box. Then we'll take a look at the drone itself and cover its main features. And finally, we'll go outside and take the Eachine Pioneer E350 for its maiden flight. So okay, let's stop wasting time and let's get started with the unboxing. Initially, when we open the box, we will find inside a group of smaller boxes that contain all the main components and the drone itself. They seem pretty well organized, and that makes the size of the box small enough, which hopefully could contribute to lower shipping fees. The first thing we will find inside the box is a balance charger, and as you can see, it will allow you to charge batteries with different chemistry, although you'll be limited to charging batteries of 2 and 3 cells. As I mentioned to you a moment ago, you'll be able to charge LiPo batteries, lithium-ion batteries, and nickel metal hydride batteries. On one end of the balance charger, we'll find a connector for the power supply cable that comes included and some opening for ventilation, and then of course on the other side we'll have the connectors to balance and charge the battery. As you can see, you have a connector for a 2S and a 3S battery. Some funny aspect about this balance charger that you may have noticed already is the fact that it kinda looks like Batman. I'm not really sure whether this was done on purpose, but I kinda like it. The next thing we'll find inside the box is the power supply cable, and that is of course part of the balance charger. And then to power the drone itself, we get this 2200 milliamps battery, which has a discharge rate of 25C, and of course it's 3 cells, so it's 11.1 volts. If you're interested in knowing the exact dimensions of the battery, here you can see it. 105.62 millimeters, and then the height is around 23 millimeters. And if we take a look at the width, we can see that it's 33.5 millimeters. And now that we know the dimensions of the battery, we can then proceed to take a look at the weight. Let me place it here. And as you can see, it's around 168 grams. If we compare it to the 2700 milliamp battery from the Eachine CX20, you can see that they're roughly the same size, so you should be able to use batteries, these kind of batteries with the drone as well. Now the next thing inside the box are these 9-inch self-tightening props, and you can see that they have a tiny little icon that shows you in what direction you need to spin them in order to lock them or to unlock them. The quality of these props seems kind of decent. So, they're not probably as good as the ones that you get with a DJI, but they still look pretty decent. Then we have this tiny little plastic bag here with an extra key and a few screws. Not sure if it's supposed to be for the gimbal. Yeah, I guess it is. And another thing we'll find with the Eachine Pioneer E350 are these cables that are probably to connect the gimbal, although as I mentioned to you already, this version does not come with the gimbal. So then we have the landing gear, of course. Nothing much to say about the landing gear. It seems rather flexible, and it should be able to take a few emergency landings without shattering, so I guess that's good. And then the transmitter that looks really, really old school, and it has no LCD screen. But, well, that's the only thing we get. I would like now to take a look at the transmitter. Here on the corner you have some bind button and then the mode change. I haven't tried those yet. I will let you know later. Then, of course, we have on the upper section here trim buttons that would allow you to correct any irregular flying patterns, provided they are not the result of poorly calibrated compass or some other technical issues. And then here on the center, of course, we have the power button. You can slide it up to turn on the transmitter and slide it down to power it off. And then if we move to the bottom right corner, we'll see a sort of like a dial, but I think it's just decoration. I don't think it does anything really. If we move to the upper left corner, we'll find a 3-position switch. As you can see, the first position is basically the stabilized mode, which is no GPS hold or anything like that. Then we have altitude hold, and the third position says headlock, which I assume is probably the so-called headless mode, which I actually never use. And then right behind there is the 3-position switch. We have this knob that would allow us to control the gimbal. It says there that it controls the roll. We will see about that later when we try the gimbal. Then if we move to the other side, we'll find another 3-position switch. This one will allow us to activate the GPS mode or flying GPS mode, and it will also allow us to activate the auto return home function that will trigger the drone to return to its landing, takeoff position. And then of course this is another control for the for the pitch of the gimbal, and we'll test that later when we get the gimbal. Let's now take a look at the battery compartment. Here, as you can see, you need to use 4 AA batteries that do not come included. And then of course finally we have the big bird, the Eachine Pioneer E350. I must say this drone has an alien-like design, very original and easy to remember. You can see that it's very curvy and aggressive, and it got some nice LEDs in the fronts, so it certainly reminds me of some sort of alien aircraft. Here you can see how it looks from the side. Pretty curvy, and yeah, it's a nice design, I would say. It's kind of original. I don't think I have seen any other drone that looks like the Eachine Pioneer E350. Then if we get a little bit closer here to the LEDs, we'll see that the front LEDs are kind of large, so actually this might help us to fly in low light conditions during the evening and make the drone visible. Right next to the LEDs, you'll notice on the arms there are some sort of ventilation ducts to cool down the 20 amps ESCs that seem to be located pretty close to the body of the drone. And then here you can get a better view of the curvy design of the front section of the drone. I really like it actually. And then on the rear section we also find the same ventilation ducts to cool down the electronic speed controllers and some other openings here on the battery section that will potentially help to ventilate that compartment as well. Now let's cover the motors. These are 2212 brushless motors, and although it doesn't say anywhere about their kV value, according to Eachine they're supposed to be 980 kV, but I'm not quite sure as I don't see any labeling here. Then the motors seem to be actually really large, but they aren't. They're just mounted on a plastic unit that makes them look kind of large. And then under each hand we'll find LED lights protected by a rather large plastic capsule. In fact, they almost look like light bulbs actually. But well, hopefully they'll be well suitable for flying in the evening. And then if we take a look under, we'll see the openings for the screws that will secure basically the gimbal in place. I don't have the gimbal, but I'll probably get it later. And then if we continue examining the belly of the beast, we'll find the connectors for the gimbal and potentially for the Bluetooth module, which I don't have here either, but it will allow us to relay some information to the computer. And then here on the side we have basically the mount for the landing gear and the large screw here in the middle that will basically allow you to secure the landing gear to the body of the drone. Then on the rear section, as you can see, we have an opening that gives us access to the battery compartment, and then inside of course we have the XC60 connector for the battery itself. I keep wondering why the front of the Eachine, this logo that they have used here is very familiar. I think they're using the same font that Porsche uses on its cars. I don't have a Porsche or anything like that, but it seems to me that it's the same font that Porsche is using on their vehicles. Now, next thing I would like to do is place the landing gear. First you need to remove this sort of rather large screw here on the center, and then place the landing gear and secure it. Personally, one of the screws was missing, so I used actually the screws from the Eachine CX20 and they work perfectly with this quad, so that's good news. And here you can see the big boy now, or the big bird with the landing gear. Now let's go outside and test the Eachine Pioneer E350 for the first time. I suggest those of you living outside China that you do some calibration, actually some compass calibration before flying. Usually I don't have to do that over here, they already come calibrated, but I guess if I'll be in a different country I'll proceed to calibrate them. According to Eachine, the flying range of this drone should be somewhere between 700 to 1200 meters. That's a very big difference, so I'd rather go for the lowest value. Then the next thing I would like to do is to go ahead and place the 2200 milliamps battery in the drone. It's good that we have enough space to place a larger battery, but the negative side is that this battery will be rather loose inside the drone, so I need to find a way to fix that. Once we place the battery and connect the quad, we'll start beeping and you'll see the LED lights flash. And I advise you to give the quad some minutes before flying so it can acquire enough satellites Otherwise, you will see some variations in its position when it's flying in GPS mode. So give it some time and yeah, wait a bit. The next thing, obviously, once you power the quad and it has acquired the satellites and so on, and it has everything is ready, it will be to unlock the motors. Unlocking the motors of the Eachine Pioneer E350 is very easy. Basically, we will have to just use the throttle stick and then push the throttle stick down and to the right, and the motors will immediately unlock. And then to lock the motors, we just do the opposite, and pretty much that's it. But now let me tell you that there is a safety feature. After unlocking the motors, if we sort of don't accelerate and touch the throttle stick, it would automatically turn off the motors. Okay, so I will now start doing a very short flying test around here in the so-called standard mode, which is basically no altitude hold and no GPS hold and so on. As you can see, the yaw rate seems rather fast, I would say. I mean, this is a big bird, so I think it's rather fast. There are many people around here, so I really have to be careful. I don't want to take it too far. But later in the video, you can see that I'll be flying a little bit more in this stabilized mode. So if you want, you can scroll a little bit further in the video. Because this time we don't have no altitude hold in this mode. We need to compensate a bit, as the drone tends to lose a little bit of altitude as you fly around. I think most people are going to be using altitude hold or GPS mode when flying this drone. But well, the standard mode is actually alright. I mean, if you want to, do some sporty flying and have some fun, it's a good flying mode. But if you really want to, record some steady video and so on, I would advise you to use the altitude hold mode or the GPS flying modes. I think those modes are way better for that. So, but of course, I think it's great to have the option to also fly in this sort of stabilized mode. Now here I'm flying in altitude hold, and you can see it's doing a pretty decent job at keeping its altitude. I mean, it's definitely less responsive. I can feel that it's less responsive, but nonetheless, that's exactly what you want. If you're flying with a camera, you don't want the drone to be very snappy because your video might actually that might reflect in your video. So altitude hold seems to be working decently here as I fly. I don't see much variation in the altitude. I'm positive about that. So, but we'll try it later, a little bit later in the video. I will show you a little bit more, and you can see that there will be some variations once you leave it for a while flying on the same spot and you observe it. It does tend to actually change a little bit altitude, but I will show you that a little bit further in the video. And now the next thing I would like to do is basically to try the GPS mode, basically. So now I have engaged the so-called GPS mode. In this mode, the drone will try to do its best to keep its position and its altitude. And as you can see, after I press the switch, the drone will remain in the same position until I change the switch to a different position or start controlling basically the direction with the sticks. At this point, you should be able to release the transmitter without needing to worry about the drone flying away. If we get closer, we will see that the drone seems to be doing a fine job keeping its position. Although, as I mentioned to you before, this will be highly dependent on the number of satellites that the drone manages to lock onto. Usually, the more satellites it connects to, the better it can keep the same position without drifting. It would be great to have some LCD screen in the transmitter to be able to tell how many satellites is the drone locking onto at a given time. But with the Pioneer, the only way to get this information is by using, I guess, that Bluetooth module. So I hope Eachine will include some sort of LCD screen on the transmitter that will display information like the number of satellites and so on, and the strength of the signal as well. So let's see in the future. I will now, that we have tested obviously the GPS mode and so on, I want to fly some more using the so-called stabilized mode. So at this time here, when I was flying, there were, there were just too many people to be able to take the drone any further. I didn't want to risk hurting people, so I waited a little bit, and then now you can see that there are less people on the field. So what I'm gonna do now is that I will be flying a little bit more using the so-called stabilized mode. That basically means no altitude hold or GPS. Flying in this mode, the drone feels way more responsive and agile. This is good. if you want to have some fun flying around. But then again, I repeat, if you want to record video, you better go for the GPS or the altitude hold. The drone will become less responsive, but you'll get a better, more stable video. The Eachine Pioneer actually can develop some decent speed, but I will only be pushing it around 85%. I will only be pushing the throttle around 85%, just because I don't feel like flying faster or accelerating quickly without first properly securing the battery inside the drone. I think there is a great chance for the battery to shift position during rapid acceleration. Nonetheless, even at 85%, you can see that it's a rather fast drone. If you compare, for example, to the Choosing CX22 or even with other drones like the Xiaomi Mi, flying, although in altitude and GPS hold, is still kind of the same. I mean, it feels the same, it's just much slower and less responsive. I must say though that while flying in GPS mode, I did experience once a kind of a strange event that I managed to record, and I would like to show you. You know, at some point when I was actually testing the GPS mode, I took the drone, you can see it now, and I sort of, you know, went up and kept it there at a certain altitude. Then I engaged the GPS flying mode, and after having done that, I started to sort of circle around a bit to check the agility of the drone in this mode. As I started to fly in circles around a fixed point, I noticed that the drone became a little bit unresponsive, and I experienced a subtle but constant drop in altitude. Even though I was pushing the throttle all the way up, I had to, you know, the drone kept descending. So I could obviously control the yaw and the roll, but it seems that the drone continued to slowly descend to the ground. And when I was when I was around 3 meters away from the ground, I decided to switch back to the stabilized mode and disengage the GPS mode, and I took control and brought it up again. I'm not really sure what happened there. It only happened once, but there probably shows that there are probably some bugs in the flight controller or something that could be fixed. If you recall correctly, I mentioned that I was very satisfied with the GPS hold on this drone, as it managed to keep its position without much drift. I have a bit of a different story to tell maybe about its ability to keep altitude. Something that I noticed is that, and I would like to show you now, is that despite that the GPS hold is relatively good, the drone seems to show some variation when it comes to altitude. So I have now placed the transmitter on the ground, and I will take a look at how good the drone manages to keep its position and altitude. Using the trees in the background and the transmitter on the ground as a reference point, you can more or less get an idea about the level of drift that the drone experiences over a period of time. It was my impression that the drone was sort of effective in correcting drifts in its original position, but it was not as effective in controlling its altitude. And this is something I have encountered in some drones that I have tested lately. They seem to be more effective at keeping their position, but not as effective when keeping the altitude. This could also be maybe because I'm flying too close to the ground and I get a little bit of turbulence, so that might be affecting the barometer. But you know, I can't really tell where that's the case. Maybe I will need to try it later at high altitudes. Now what I want to try is the auto return home function. As you saw now, the drone was flying a little bit at some distance from me, and as soon as I use the switch and engage the auto return home mode, the drone came really quickly flying back, really fast actually. Now it's taking a little bit longer to descend, but the initial trip it takes back is pretty quick. It only took a few seconds to get back, and now it's slowly descending. Let's see how close it lands to its takeoff point, from the takeoff point. Okay, here it comes. Yeah, I'll say it's maybe around 2 meters or something like that. You can see here, this is the takeoff point. And then let's take a look at the quad. Yeah, I think it's maybe a little bit more than 2 meters. So that's not bad, but it's still more than the CG035 that I tried previously and the Xiaomi drone. So maybe there's some work that needs to be done there. Okay, then I think pretty much we can go to the conclusions now. First, I'll cover what I liked about this drone. I like the design, it's original. I like the weight, it feels, the way it feels to fly it. It offers some sort of a sporty mode in this so-called stabilized mode, but it also offers more stable flying options like altitude hold and GPS mode. I like the fact that it has enough space to place larger batteries, and then it can also be connected to a ground station such as Mission Planet for further configuration. Also, the price is not really bad. I mean, you can get it for $189, which is basically the version I have over here, and if you want the gimbal version with the Bluetooth module, you still can get it for around $215, so that's not too bad. You can check more detailed information about the price on the link that I placed in the description of the video. What I didn't like so much about this was the stock battery. It was kind of loose inside the drone, and I also didn't like the transmitter. It's a nice transmitter if you like retro style, old school sort of housey flying, but I think that nowadays you should get at least a simple and cheap LCD screen that displays some basic information. Also, I mean, there were probably a few bugs in the flight controller that could potentially be fixed, maybe with an upgrade or something like that. They produce some irregular behavior that I show you in the video. Yeah, and also, yeah, I mean, it could keep probably altitude better, but maybe I was flying too close to the ground. Not sure about that. Overall, I think this drone will do a good job at competing with drones like the Eachine CX20, the Eachine CX22, the Flying 3D, and so on. It's not perfect, but certainly for the price, I think it's decent. I would also like to test the gimbal. I have a few gimbals here that I might try, like 3-axis gimbals, but the gimbal that comes with this drone is a 2-axis gimbal that should be able to take a GoPro or any other action cameras. So okay, this will conclude my review. If it was useful to you, please give me a thumbs up and drop me some comments. I'll certainly appreciate that, and I'll reply the comments. Also, if you feel like I say something stupid or incorrect, please let me know. In that way we will all benefit. And if you're interested in the topic of drones, I would like to get the latest news and reviews directly from China, do not hesitate and subscribe to my channel. Hope to see you all in my next video.